Dear teacher, I fell off my bike the other day and I had to go get some stitches from Dr. Sally.
Dear Miss Hernandez, sobrang nag-enjoy ako sa storytelling session natin yesterday. From now on, I'll always listen to my mommy because she really knows best.
Hello, teacher. I miss you and my classmates. I can't wait to see you all very soon. I remember the last time we all played hide and seek. I really enjoyed that.
Tapos na ako sa project ko. Sabi nga ni Dad, baka pwede ako maging artist someday. I really love to draw. Sana magustuhan niyo po yung gawa ko.
Teacher, I had a wonderful dream. It was me singing on stage in front of so many people. I loved it. I really want to be a singer when I grow up.
Dear Miss Sarah, I wish to be a teacher like you someday, so I can help other kids like you reach their dreams.
Hello, class.
Good morning, Miss Hernandez.
Hello, everyone. How are you all doing today?
Hi, teacher and classmates. My name is Shirley Cabal Revilla. I'm 4 years old.
Thanks, Shirley.
May natutunan ba kayo?
Dapat makinig sa ating mga magulang.
Anto na ngayon. Salamat, Ma'am Luxie.
Bye, class. Ayaw mo kalimut sa exam mo, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Sa diin, una ni-celebrar ang Independence Day.
Sa balay ni Presidente Emilio Aguinaldo, ma'am.
Sa diin ang balay niya.
Sa Kawit, Cavite, ma'am.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Voix Live 2020, welcoming a new age of customer service with artificial intelligence. I am your host, Kurt, and I'm so privileged to be your host and to be hosting this event today. No, and I'm so glad to have everyone here in Zoom, and we are also live on Facebook. So sa lahat ng mga nanonood sa Facebook, hello, and good afternoon to everyone. But before we proceed any further, we would like to thank our amazing co-presenters who made this event possible. Google Cloud, PLDT Enterprise, and PLDT InnoLab. We'd also like to mention our media partners, Squeeze Philippines, and Backend News. Thank you so much for your support. So just a few reminders before we get started. Below your screens, for those who are here in Zoom, you will find 3 buttons, no? The chat, the raise hand, and the Q&A. So if you'd like to be recognized, please click the raise hand button. So you can try that now. And then if you would like to ask a question, please click the Q&A button. Your answers will be collected and we'll answer them during the Q&A portion of the event. So please prepare your questions. And it's not just that. The 3 questions answered during the Q&A will win freebies from PLDT and Google. Wow, thank you so much. Maraming salamat, PLDT and Google. But it is only available for Metro Manila and Zoom participants only. So by default, you are on mute and can only be unmuted by our moderator. So again, ayan, welcome to Voix Live 2020. welcoming a new age of customer service with artificial intelligence. We're so excited to have everyone here, especially our top-notch lineup of panelists. Let's get to know them, shall we? So first up, he is a customer engineer with Google Cloud who specializes in telco companies and contact center AI. Based in Singapore, he has been at Google for 9 years, working across Google Maps, media and entertainment, and most recently, infrastructure modernization. He's a proud New Zealander with a Filipino wife, so his heart is 50% Filipino. Please give a warm welcome to Graham Meral. Hi, Graham. How are you?
Magandang hapon, mabuti salamat.
How are you? How's your day so far, or your quarantine days?
Quarantine days are going very well. We've been working from home for a number of months now, so we're very much in the rhythm of working from home, although I'm looking forward to a change of scenery at some point. But apart from that, it's going great.
All right. Thank you so much, Graham. So next, he has nearly 3 decades of experience in IT services and various other industries, including automotive, FMCG, and electronics. He is currently TELUS International Vice President and ENL and managing overall operations end-to-end. Please welcome Nala Kumar RS. Hi, Nala.
Hi, Kurt. I'm happy to be here and nice to see all of you here and looking forward to this discussion.
Yes, it's also nice to see you here. Okay, thank you, Nala. So up next, and persuasive communicator, she leads the overall operations of Team Asia as managing director. She drives Team Asia's world-class integrated marketing experience practice with her progressive leadership and deep knowledge of international trends, a product of her continuous pursuit of learning. She has spearheaded some of Team Asia's biggest campaigns in tech, IT BPM, and development aid. Please give a round of applause to Bea Lim. Hi, Bea.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Super excited to be with you guys today. Thank you.
How are you? How are you, Bea?
I'm good. Well, we are work from home, so it's busy as ever. But you know, I'm hoping and praying for brighter days ahead. So I think that's what we're going to talk about today too.
Yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to the discussion later. Thank you, Bea.
Thanks, Kurt.
Our next panelist is the head of PLDT Enterprises Innovation Center. He is also the former head of the digital innovations team for PLDT Global, with more than 15 years of experience in enterprise product development, including 4 years of providing new services to overseas Filipino workers. His team is now leading innovation and paving the way for future digital solutions through open innovation and collaboration. Please all welcome Andy Santos. Hi, Andy.
Good afternoon to everyone. Happy to be
Andy,
here.
Yes, happy to be for you to be here also. So with us, how are you so far?
Enjoying work from home so far, but missing the edge, the daily edge of traffic.
Yeah, we all miss that at one point, I think. Thank you so much, Andy. And finally, our moderator for this discussion is Kubo's Director and Ideaspace Associate Director for Strategy and Business Development. She draws on her experience working with senior management in corporate development, capital markets, and process engineering positions, and advises startups on scaling and growing share, fundraising, and improving efficiency and profitability. Let us all welcome Katrina Chan. Hi, Kat.
Hi, Kurt, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to be at this discussion today and, you know, speaking with our fantastic panel like Nala, Graham, and Bea, and of course, Andy. So.
Yeah, I'm pretty much.
It's a traffic though, so.
Oh yeah. I'm pretty much sure that our audience and our attendees are also excited for this panel activity, no. So, but before that, no. So, again, I would like to remind our participants that below your screen you will find 3 buttons: the chat, the raise hand, and the Q&A. And then by the end of the panel discussion, we'll have a question and answer portion. We'll select 3 best questions from the Q&A who will win freebies from PLDT and Google. We're asking participants to please ready your questions. And now, without further ado, let's get it on with the panel discussion. So take it away, Kat.
Thank you, Kurt. And yeah, hello, everyone. So once again, we're doing this in quite an unusual virtual format from our respective places, right? So I guess, you know, obviously this pandemic has, and this whole situation has turned everything upside down. With that comes, of course, great challenges, but also, you know, potentially opportunities, which is why we're here today to discuss how the contact center industry and AI and technology is really going to shape what will be, you know, the current normal or maybe new normal. So in my normal life, I worked with startups, and that's how I met Senti, the kind of what made Voix possible, right? Like all of this technology and ideas that are really now coming to the fore in this era of unprecedented challenges. So I guess with that, I do want to, I guess, kick off this first question to Nala. I guess what I would love to understand is, what is the lay of the land, right? Like, so what has the effect of this crisis been on your whole industry? You know, you could talk about things like, you know, again, call volumes, communication channels, the whole industry and how it operates with your agents. Please do share some of your observations, since I think in this group you're most deeply in the trenches, right?
Wow. So. Thank you, Katz. Yeah. I think the call volumes, or we call it the touch point, the customer touch points, varies a lot depending on the industries. For example, looks like all this food deliveries, the online delivery call volumes have really increased. And one of the funny industry which got industry is wine deliveries as well. It has gone like around 300% times.
300%
in some parts of the world. And I think at the start of the COVID time frame, the technology support in terms of the work from home, the people trying to solve their problems at home themselves, there is no physical hands and body to help them. So the technology costs were quite high, and now it's more shifting towards the delivery services and the online services quite heavily. But the other thing also, with families, kids around, with lots of online sessions going at every home, you know, there is a shift from the voice to the non-voice, because people don't want it to make too much noise or the bandwidth. So we see that the shift is happening, and the demand for the technologies and the Wi-Fi at every residence has gone up a lot. So that's also driven some of the shifts which we wanted earlier. Has like I would say the COVID has fast tracked some of these transitions to the chats and online conversation. More use of the knowledge base we have seen, and about the customer behavior, that's what we have seen. Agents, like all of us, you know, tend to work too long staring at the screen. So we have to remind them to get up and then move around, look at a long distance time to time, every 30-40 minutes, and take some vacations. Like, you know, unless I was reminded, I did not take an off for the first 4 months, and then started to take some breaks. Probably I'll let others to talk about before I get into the KPIs.
Yeah, and you've touched on a few themes there, right? Like, I think, you know, a lot of us being able to work from home really has been powered by a lot of, you know, again, you know, calling, being able to do things remotely, having access to these technologies and apps. Like, had this pandemic happened even, I don't know, like a decade ago, right? Like, it would have probably been nearly impossible for us to attain as much productivity as maybe we have, I'm assuming. I know, Andy, maybe you can jump in. Have you had the same experience, or as what Nala's observed with?
So far, of course, the internet demand has gone up dramatically. especially for who would imagine, I was saying earlier with the colleagues here, who would imagine that BPO will be driven to work from home, even BFSI will be, or the banking sector will work from home. Even us from the telco industry, who would imagine us doing our work from home? So I think it's really the proper timing. Sad to say, but at least our internet has gone better and collaboration was driven really by this pandemic. No
This
one
really,
wants it, but yeah.
this is really the stress test on the network infrastructure, right? Like as Nala was
True.
saying, the call times are longer, you know, maybe something that you could have quickly kind of done in some other format, like it's totally different now. And I guess Bea, I'm curious also, like, I mean, you'd read things like, you know, yeah, and from a customer experience point of view, right? There's a lot more complaints, maybe anxiety, and you know, with social media, people are able to kind of express their concerns much more freely. Like, from your client's perspective or from a communications point of view, what have your observations been?
Oh my goodness, Kat. First of all, Andy, we're the ones who use the internet for sure. I mean, I guess what I can bring to the table, Kat, and of course to my fellow panelists, is that I could come in also as a customer, but at the same time from a communication standpoint, right? I think that what we really need to be able to just say out loud is that our behavior has changed. COVID-19 has pushed us to, I think Andy and Nala already touched on this, but as customers, let's pause first, and even, you know, our behavior as individuals have changed. Therefore, customer behavior has changed because we are customers first before we are service providers. So from a communication standpoint, what we've seen is, number one, we're all on digital. Like everybody is on digital. So yes, Andy, internet is key to life and to work these days. We've also seen that a lot of people are busy because there's a lot of things that need to shift as we change, as our customer behavior changes, right? Business strategies have to change, our communication strategies also have to change, and there's a lot of pivoting that's happening, right? And so with that, we can also see that while people are busy and while people are in digital, there is also a need for everybody to sort of like voice out what they are feeling, because we have been stuck at home. We have been really stressed out because of the situation, and we've been forced to not be able to physically connect with people, right? And so there is that third trend of the need to be connected all the time. Like there is that craving that you want to be connected to the person that is servicing you. You want to be connected to your clients. You want to be connected to your partners. You want to be connected to the folks that are behind the brands that you support, or even the tech that you are using. Because, you know, we're all driven into a place where every single person in the world is experiencing the same thing. And so, yes, Kat, unfortunately, there's a lot of anxiety and, so to speak, complaints that we do see here and there in the digital space. But I also feel, though, that more than the anxiety and more than the complaints or the stresses, is there is that push from our customers, from everybody for that matter, actually, to transform the way we used to do things to fit our current lifestyle and work style that is needed right now. So I think that that's what I can bring to the table.
I mean, just picking up on that, I think, as you mentioned, it's not just the anxiety people are feeling, but that the nature of their concerns have actually changed.
Correct.
As a result of the crisis, right? Like the issues are more complex, maybe not as easily resolved as what you would have, you know, what the way that you're used to. I think that's a natural thing when you're adapting to a new way of working or dealing with issues that, you know, more complex or difficult issues come up. So
absolutely. Absolutely. If I may just add, Kat, I think that on your point, it's more of like, imagine this, everybody's trying to figure something out. We're all trying to figure out the change, and then suddenly it's about
the old rule book,
product.
right? Like,
yeah, exactly. So, and then suddenly it's like trying to figure it out, and then suddenly it's about the product, it's about the service. So there's two layers all the time. and we're all human here, right? So there is that pivot, so to speak, or the change in behavior that we can expect, actually, not just now but in the near future as well.
Absolutely. I think we're all sharing this pain and this also sense of urgency of
Correct.
like, we need to deal with this. Like it's already happening, right? So
Yes.
how do we move forward? So I guess and that's actually a great segue to kind of the next thing that I've been thinking about. So of course, tech is very close to my heart, like, and I think to all of us is something that we're working with. And we like to say in the startup community, right, that like there's big problems also provide great opportunities for innovation, for tech, for solutions, right? So I guess for my second question, like, what do you think is, and maybe I'll address this to Graham. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name first. Like, yeah, so what do you see the role of technology being in all of this? And I guess, given this is such a huge problem, right? Like, what issues or barriers or challenges are there that might be hindering the adoption of new technologies, right? In particular in the contact center industry. And what role does AI have to play in all of this?
Yeah, look, I think the issue at the moment is that people are things are changing all the time, particularly in this environment that we're in. The rules are always changing. So what's true yesterday may not necessarily be true tomorrow. And and for instance, here in Singapore, there's a new set of rules around bars and things coming in on September the 1st and around sports. Now, I don't know what they are yet. I know some of them, but how am I expected to know this ever-changing landscape? So the customer always wants to get in and know what's going on. So technology can play a huge role here because of pacing, and that by keeping up with the technology can allow customers to keep up with what's going on, because essentially it can communicate faster than essentially a person can. So and so what I think is hindering a lot of technology uptake in call centers and contact centers is I think a lot of these contact centers work for often very traditional organizations. So without throwing Andy under the bus too much, but telcos, for instance, can be quite traditional, and as well as banks and anywhere where there's a large call center operation. Plus, it's a very difficult space to operate in. You are dealing with customers who, every call is different. Every call, somebody's going to ask a different question, and that customer expects to have their question answered very quickly. So you need to minimize disruption. So there's a risk aversity in there that also plays a factor. And then finally, I think where AI can play a role here is helping people understand what's being asked and provide the answers. So, voice is hard. Understanding what somebody is saying is hard. And where AI can really play a role is has the ability now to listen to conversations, ask what the user is, or listen to what the user is saying, understand that, and then surface the answer. And so, you can surface that in multiple ways, whether it's through chat or through voice, or presenting information maybe to the call center agent. So one of the nice things about that is you also get consistency of answers, where you don't run into a situation where somebody says, well, I spoke to this person yesterday and they told me something else. Well, that with AI now, being able to assist in the conversation, regardless of which side of the phone call on, you get a great consistency of experience. And the key drivers in all of this for a call center is to decrease the amount of calls that are coming through an agent by a customer being able to self-service, as well as, when a customer comes on the phone, that handling time is reduced and the customer goes away happy. And, all call centers need those three things to happen all at once. And so I think that's where AI can really, really play that key pivotal role in helping out. And we see this particularly with COVID-19, where people, phone in with, there's all the same questions all the time. Can I do this? What's the story with that? So rather than having to have agents answer the same questions all the time, why not have an AI take on that heavy lifting of monotony?
That's a really interesting take, actually, because I mean, I'll just put it out there, like as a not in this industry person, like typically when I hear sort of something like AI, like contact center industry, it's usually almost like a scary or bad thing, like job killing thing. But I guess what you're saying also is that this technology can actually augment or help the agents in their experience, right? Like reduce some of the burden of things that, you know, maybe they shouldn't be doing and more suitable for.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, 100%. Well, we've done some studies. So one thing that's you'll see later on is Google's contact center AI platform, and we've done some studies. And one of the interesting things that came out of it was an increase in employee satisfaction, because by having the AI deal with the usual I guess the boring questions, for want of a better way of putting it, and that frees the agents up to actually do off-call work that is sometimes can be very valuable, but also lets the agents deal with all the really interesting problems, right? And that's what agents want to do. They don't want to have to answer the same question.
They're happy, they're more productive, right?
Yeah. So that's it's almost a counterintuitive stat, but as I said, we've done a number of studies and the numbers are borne out.
Since you name checked Andy, I'm gonna call him out on it a bit. Like, I mean, there was a Zendesk customer experience trends report where only 30% of organizations offer any form of self-service, live chat, social messaging, you know, any of these like kind of tech AI sort of stuff. And it was implied by Graham that maybe the telco industry or maybe some of your clients kind of would fall into this traditional 70%. Do you agree with that? Do you think there is hesitation in adopting AI, or I don't know, like what's your experience been with how the uptake has been?
I think there's some hesitation, especially our local BPOs, call centers, probably because we are still measuring a different KPI. We measure KPIs based on the duration of calls, number of calls handled. Probably it's time to shift from that KPIs to a better measurement wherein we automate the first touch point. We improve the experience when a customer calls or introduces through a chat, because today AI could work through multi-channels. So that's very important, because especially the pandemic, all of our customers, even the retail industries, are going online. So imagine, how will you order such things? Do you call an agent? Do you call them all the time? How convenient it would be if we use our Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, even Viber. And there are AIs today that can consolidate all those things. An omnichannel approach to a single pane of glass to monitor all of those. So it will be easier. So first touch point will be collecting the orders, of course, profiling the customer. And when it goes to the agent, it's specific. What will be the order? What time it will be delivered? So those kind of things where the initial engagement could be readily automated by AI. So those are the improvements that we will see. Within today's landscape, I think we are missing that initially. But with the current pandemic, I think everyone will be pushed to go online. E-commerce will be pushed. Event services will be pushed online. So AI will have to handle those volume to aid the agents in handling each of those calls. So if I may say, tailing back to our previous context, I think the internet will be the new fuel. If previously we need gas to go to our offices, today it's the internet, it's the need today. So imagine everyone's online, everyone's ordering, reporting its trouble online. That's our experience as we see it today.
And I guess this is for anyone who might have some insight on this. Like, So going back to what you think is hindering the adoption, like if there was one thing that like we're getting stuck on, whether it's text data or voice, right? Like where do you think there's still sort of some friction in terms of the adoption of tech and AI for this industry?
It's Graham again. If I can just quickly take that, I think part of the challenge is actually in the Philippines specifically is the Filipino language. So one of the real challenges in machine learning and AI when it comes to language is the term context switching, which is where somebody uses one language and then switches to another and switches back again. And so that is the very definition of Taglish. So so that's an incredibly difficult problem space. And so I think anybody that can crack context switching and Taglish is going to do well in this space.
So, I mean, when I first met Ralph and Senti, like they were geeking out about natural languages and like all of these dialects and, even like Becky speak or like, other types of forms of slang, right? And this, I think, becomes especially true once you're talking about voice, right? Like intonation, how your feelings and things like that. So this is such a complex and interesting kind of problem, not just from a tech perspective, but how it's applied in, again, the conversation and customer service and user experience. Right. So, yeah, sorry, Nala, did you want to say something?
Yeah, one thing I like to add during the COVID is like pre-COVID season, we were focused in terms of the screen automation, how fast to close the calls in terms of more heavy on the RPA side. But I think post-COVID, I would say we are getting into this chatbot hyper automation because the more automations, the gateway to the automations, we find it are driven through the chatbot as a primary channel. And from chatbot, we are able to trigger an RPA on the back end or an AI automation. So from a technology side, I think that's happening. And we feel that the customer adoption is very smoother on the chatbot. I also kind of touch upon one of the questions that the technology is so well versed now. The shift of AI-based chatbot versus a human chat has become very smooth along with the omnichannel in it, right? Like it's very hard to even say whether you're chatting with a robot or you're chatting with a human. But in terms of transparency, it makes it much easier when you say that you're transferring to the live chat and it gets to see everything. That's what I've seen. And the question of AI, like people think it's a rocket science sometimes, like not everybody knew that we are daily users of AI. Like one of the favorite features I would love is the Hangouts, right? When the noise cancellation was introduced, when the dog, I have 2 dogs at home and automatically all those noises removed and the fan noises, it's fantastic. Like, when you tell people just click the 3 dots and then enable this button, they do it. Wow, they're surprised. And I will tell them that's AI. It's an AI which cancels all those noise and they are surprised.
It's one of these things that you don't necessarily feel or think about, right? Like even when we, at least as a user of, like it's important that you get that sort of transition from, okay, like my needs are being served by the AI, but at some point, like, I do want to talk to a human being and like, maybe deal with more complex issues, right? It's the same thing. Like, I think there's a whole spectrum of how AI can be applied in, various facets of life that we're all kind of being forced to kind of embrace as we speak. So yeah, I mean, maybe I wanna quickly pivot to how this is being applied now in business, right? So, and in this industry. So, like what are we seeing now in terms of, using technology for contact center operations, right? So what are the kind of big trends? How are the like latest, most sophisticated technologies like being used in your industry? Like, is it primarily to kind of cut costs and get rid of humans, I guess, or are there sort of interesting applications that you're seeing and adopting and embracing? And maybe I'll address this to you first, Nala, since you're
Okay.
you're probably at the forefront of this right now.
I think I touched on the question, this question a little earlier, probably, is that we see that shift happening from the RPA to the chatbot being the front end and then chatbot driving the RPA styles. That's quite, and in fact, I like to highlight on even the IT support. You know, we are using a product called IPsoft, which kind of guarantees around 30-40% of the first level calls or the password resets, the standard onboarding of the employees. You know, take the data from the HR systems and onboard, give a password, and then on the day one, those things can be very easily automated. And we see that with shortage of some of the skill sets or the difficulty in remote working has driven those technology drives much faster. And I think the onset premise of automation for cost reduction is shifting from cost reduction towards, hey, how can we give that business continuity more effectively, more continuously through automation? That part has come now. So the ROI has become, I would say, a little bit more easier. And to Graham's point about it makes the employee satisfaction very high. You know, who would like to work 5 out of the 8 hours just doing a password reset, asking the same level of questions? Today, all those preset questions are pre-answered before the call is transferred to the agent. You know, that gives the satisfaction level to the agent very high. And also for the customer side, the customer experience, it is not wanted to hang on to a call for 10 minutes just to ask that simple question, right? You know, whether it's a banking transactions, or whether asking for the bank balance, or whether asking for a transfer to a time deposit from the savings account. All those automations, we see that in every industry has happened. Particularly when I see it from a call center perspective. In terms of, has this reduced the demand for the human? No. You know, we're still growing, like we are still hiring for the same customer base because the level of support of the customers has increased. Now, I very often use this example of booking a hotel during a leisure, right? You know, 5 years ago, we visit 10 websites and then choose which resorts to stay. And we are happy with choosing one of the 10. Today we go to Trivago or some sites and we like to compare against 100 resorts and then pick the best. So the chances of higher accuracy and higher satisfaction has increased. And as a consumer, we like to consume more data now. So the need for the support in the backend is still the same, but the quality of the information and the decisions have really improved through the help of all these latest technologies of AI.
So I'm hearing two things, right? So from the call center point of view, right, like definitely some efficiencies and cost, right? And at the same time, from the agent's perspective, you know, improving morale or, you know, decreasing attrition, right? Like you're improving engagement with employees. But then you also touched on the customer experience side of things. And, you know, I've been seeing on the screen some of the questions around, you know, this so-called omnichannel experience or the customer experience. So I was hoping, Bea, you could share a little bit more on, you know, how you've seen technology and AI impact the customer experience side of things. What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. First of all, I think that this has truly also elevated our customer experience journey. And I think, Kat, you and I, actually everybody in this call, right, we can all attest to this as customers. I mean, I go back, like, you know, I think one of the great things about being a communicator is you are your own case study. You are your own benchmark. Like, would you do this? How would you be satisfied? How would you like this? How would you not like this, right? And so if I go into your question on the omni-channel approach, if I can just quickly define it for
Yeah, actually, that would
everybody,
be
right?
great. Like, what is the omnichannel approach, first of all?
I'm sure Graham, Andy, and Nala would have their own definition, and we can come up with our own definition right now of the five of us. But for us at Team Asia, it's actually pretty simple. For us, an omni-channel approach is what we call integrated marketing experiences, right? Because we're also a provider of that one. It's being able to tell the right message to the right people at the right time and place using the right channel. So that is like, if that's something that you guys can take on with you guys today, that would be great, because omnichannel is being able to be in every step of the way when it comes to your customer journey, but not necessarily having the customer feel like there were gaps, right? They have, you have the right message and you're delivering it in any of these diverse channels, but they don't feel that there is a transition, right? It's seamless. It's a seamless integration. Maybe today, Bea, the customer journey of Bea is, I'm on my phone, and I'm on my phone because I'm doing errands, essential errands, but I'm still on, right? So I'm on my phone. But then maybe tomorrow I'm on my laptop and maybe I have more time. And so, I'm going to be looking at the same thing, but maybe in different channels. Right now, we're very digital, we're very gadgety because of the situation, right? But omni-channel has been there since a long time, actually, right? We've been experiencing that, whether it's from print to online to on ground and all of that jazz, right? But then now, paying particular attention to the digital space, right? The omni-channel approach now becomes, number one, more expansive because the digital world is just everywhere, right? It's just too huge and it's changing every day. I think, Graham, you said it, right? The rules today are definitely 10 times different from the rules yesterday. And I can only imagine that our digital world is going to expand even more, as the days go by, as the rules of the game change. Now, our goal, right, is to make sure that as that market and as that landscape changes, communicators, AI providers, service providers, and the like, we need to be able to move with that shift by using the digital channels that we are enjoying now, and to keep an eye on the digital channels that will emerge later on, right? So I think that's where I think, Kat, it's really going to be going. The customer experience is going to change, but what's beautiful is that we're all changing along with it, right? So if there are any questions, like earlier, I was wondering if you were going to ask me about, like, the common pitfalls and whatnot. So I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not a contact center, but I am a staunch supporter of everything tech and the IT BPM industry. I mean, Team Asia has been part of the industry for so long, and for us, it's actually really the transformation, right? I think that if there's anything that we just need to make sure that we don't fall into, is that thinking that what's working today is going to work tomorrow. Because, my friends, I don't mean to give you a doomsday scenario. It's not that at all. It's actually transformative. The things that are happening today is a platform and a jump off point for greater things and more transformative things that will happen in the future, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, so like that's a thing, right? Like at the end of the day, like you think about you all of you mentioned the traditional kind of KPIs of efficiency or number of calls taken, but at the end of the day, what you're really trying to go for is like that sort of customer satisfaction, that that the service was done, right? That people, you did what you were supposed to do, I guess. And at the end of the day, how you get there, right? Like what channel, the omni-channel is really the way to move forward, or thinking about it holistically, right? That it doesn't matter if the touch point was the phone or the chat or the call, right? But were you able to deliver that service to the customer or solve that problem that they were struggling with, or did they receive the information that they needed to get from that interaction, right? So, and there are so many more touch points now, and again, the landscape is so much more complex, like, and it's still evolving as we speak. Yeah, so I'm not sure if Nala was going to say something. The box kind of got highlighted of it.
I'll butt in, it's Graham again. So I think Bea actually made a lot of points, and just also to sort of wind back a little bit to something Andy said, is that you need to be where the customer is. So, and whether the customer is on, Facebook Messenger or Viber or WhatsApp or the phone or a web browser, that is, you want to make it as easy as possible for the customer to interact with you. And also sometimes, the customer doesn't have time. If Bea is running her errands, she doesn't want to have to talk on the phone. She needs to let 30 seconds go by before she types her response, and then maybe a minute before the next response. So, you should do things on people's own time or at their pace they want. And the other thing too is, just looking actually at the slide in front of us around aligning customer experiences, the other thing is, don't force customers to do something that they don't want to do. And there was a quick Q&A, I'm sure we'll circle back to it, about this, which is, you need to find the right balance between allowing customers to talk to a person when they want to talk to a person, and giving them the choice to talk to a virtual agent when they want to talk to a virtual agent. So it's very, very important to find the balance in that right spot. And so luckily, with stuff that we're doing with Senti, you can actually find that balance. And if we don't understand what somebody's saying, we'll say, look, I'm having trouble understanding you. We'll get you to talk to a person, because they're going to be able to help you better than I can, I being the AI system. So, that's what really key, is that you need to create that smooth runway for the customer to get on and get their answers. And the other thing about multi-channel as well, as omnichannel, I should say, is it's got to be consistent, right? Yes. It's got to be consistent. So you have a single source of truth, and everybody, no matter how they interact, gets the same answer 100% of the time.
Actually, Kat, if I may also add to what Graham beautifully shared as well, I just wanted to touch on something that you said, Graham, about, hey, we need to be where our customers are. And I think, Kat, one of the things that we also have to be very aware of now is, aside from the fact that we said our customer behavior has changed, is our lives are changing. Meaning, so let's be in that situation right now. If we were to just pick one of the things, I think we were talking about this earlier before we went live on work from home. Number one, we're busier. Lines are blurred at home and at work as you continue with your work from home setup, or your, if you do go to the office, there are a lot of different rules, a lot of different safety guidelines that we are all, of course, having to follow for our own safety, right? So if we just put ourselves in that situation alone, think already of where the customer needs you the most. Mm. Right? When, how, and I think that could help in building actually that customer journey that you would like to create, where you'll come in, how you'll come in, and how you can make, like what Graham said earlier, the easiest way for your customer to get from point A to point B without a scratch, or an add-on to our already very busy, full schedules, both at home and at work. On our end, we call it, instead of it being easy, like, what's the next level experience for your customer? Like, think already, like, if you didn't want to be able to do this or go through this, what would you want? And how are you going to provide those little help buttons along the way? Which, of course, our dear panelists on tech experts have already said, like, these are the touch points where tech can definitely help or augment the journey.
So maybe I'll dig in a bit more, and like I'm starting to look at the questions that are coming in from our audience. So I guess from an application point of view, right? So the question goes, how do you balance purely AI assisted customer interactions and queries versus a live human interaction? And then the question goes on to say, because most online shopping platforms only offer full AI or chatbots without a readily available direction on how to transition to a live agent which is frustrating to customers. So, I mean, maybe Nala, I don't know if you've implemented, some like this question.
I think in some of the cases, we should not see like AI as a stage 1 and the live agent as a stage 2, because sometimes
it's blurred, right?
It works together, right? Like one of the classic application of the AI, what we have seen is all of us here will get some calls from the bank. Sir, do you want a credit card? Even if you have already 10 or even if you're blacklisted the bank. And it's so difficult to even disconnect the phone. The agent continues to talk, right? Like continues to persuade to sell, right? Like here we have a customer sentiment analysis, which is an AI box which sits on top of the car and which can tell in the within 5 to 7 seconds, is this customer a prospective customer? What is the mood of the customer? Just by the choice of the words, the length of the sentence, the pause between the words. Okay, it's going to tell the agent, hey, this customer is going to get your credit card or no. So in that, the agent also can adjust the question very fast, and it's often 98% correct in terms of the customer sensitivity using the way. So the agent can reduce the talk time with the customer, and the customer is also happy. He does not need to repeat that, say, please don't call me again. You know, don't get into that mode again, right? So I would say this is complement, right? Like both from the agent and the customer side, it's actually AI is helping the agent in terms of reducing call and increasing the satisfaction of the agent as well as the customer, because in the outbound nature, most of the times the agent get pissed off because the customer is shouting at the agent for none of his mistake.
I mean, who wants to be rejected, like, 100 times a day, right? Like it's heartbreaking. Like again, it's interesting, this interface or this sort of blend between AI and the human, right? And that there isn't necessarily like this hard line where it's just one or the other. They're not mutually exclusive, right? Same
goes with the chatbot, right? Like adjusting to Sentis in terms of the national language as well as in the plain English. Customers tend to ask the same question in different ways, different shortcuts, right? Like they use acronyms. And these AI engine over the chatbot constantly keeps understanding that language, what kind of responses the agents are giving, and then keeps learning from it on a daily basis. And it improves that experience. And at some point within 3-4 weeks nowadays, the chatbot AI is able to understand what is the customer trying to ask. And then answer 80% of the
culturally too, like there is some hesitation sometimes. Like, I don't want to be bugging a person about this. Like, people do want to do some self-service to some extent also, right? Like where, I don't feel bad like repeatedly querying like a bot about something, right? Versus, I feel like I'm wasting a human time, right? So for sure, like there are definitely lots of areas where it blends together. So
yeah, the other thing I'll just add on to Nala is that AI. We've been talking a lot about AI and as it relates to handling a customer inquiry, but there's if you think about the back office as well. So when a customer does call in, you can take in a lot of signals from your data, from your CRM system, from your loyalty programs, from your customer spend patterns, and then use those to infer patterns and predictions about the customer. So, and then use that to, add to drive essentially, value towards that customer, whether it's offering them a deal, whether it's, preventing churn or increasing ARPU for from your customers. The machine learning then can give you those insights. So rather than the scattergun approach to whomever dials in, like offering a credit card, as Nala said, it's, you make these offers to the right people at the right time to maximize the odds of them, taking up their offer. And that's where, again, machine learning and AI, has this huge impact. And that's been done for a long time now. I think the most famous case I can think of was in America. This is very spooky, and so they changed it. But there was a situation where Target in the US knew a girl was pregnant before her parents did because of what she was visiting looking at it on the website, and they sent her a targeted mailer to on baby clothes and things, and everybody freaked out. But and that's a very poor execution, but a very careful and properly applied execution, can actually yield a lot of dividends, even if it's just predicting the likelihood of a person purchasing or churning, and allow you to take action on that. So hugely valuable. So don't think about it just as a phone call or a chat, but think about it from customer lifetime value as well.
I guess speaking of how we actually start implementing this in the Philippines, right, or in general, there's a question here from Joe Brillantes. So would you recommend that customer service providers disrupt themselves by totally redesigning the customer experience, parentheses, step function change, or iterate until they get to their goal, parentheses, continuous function change, and why that recommendation? Anyone want to take that question?
Can I take that, Kat?
Yes, please.
It's really not restructuring, but mainly adjusting, or if I may say, adding some, we were talking about omnichannels earlier, adjusting the front end, the touch points. So essentially, if you are only voice calls now, we could add in other channels, chat. As we see today, there are a lot of foray into the chatbot. The chatbot we have today are mainly scripted. So if you type in a question that's not part of the script, it will just say, can you repeat that, or point you to a website. Yeah. So probably as we focus on the customer experience, probably adjusting our way of doing things, adding touch points. As discussed earlier, we were defining omnichannel. To me, omnichannel really is the tri-media of yesteryears. Today, we have a lot of channels. It could work both for the customers, having a lot of touch points, and to the BPO or the call center, where we can broadcast, even to the advertisers, broadcast more to our customers through OTTs, through Facebook, to social media. And I think Graham touched this earlier, where social media can predict what you want to buy. Once you click a book or a shoe today, imagine the next day or right after, you'll have a lot of feeds on shoes, on promotions on Nike, Adidas, and so on. So I think it's just an adjustment, and we are adapting to the new norm, as so to speak. So there really won't be a change. So AI and human agents will and should work hand in hand.
I agree.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bea.
No, I was just about to say also, Kat, if I may add to what Andy mentioned. The word that kept on coming to me as well is being agile. You also have to be agile. So it's not about completely restructuring. Andy said it, we're adapting to this new, well, now they call it the now normal, because it's really happening. Like, it's not in the future.
Exercise anymore.
It's right now. So in this future reimagined, right? We have to be agile enough to create that customer experience. I don't want to say as we go along, but to be able to also be flexible and agile enough. And with data right now, it's going to be able to fuel whether we continue this path or not. So yes, I know there are a lot of different structures and technology that can be used or tweaked and the like, but more than that, I think go back again to your customer, right? If you are also changing yourself, then you need to be able to create a platform or create a journey that is agile enough that can change up, so to speak, as the things change in this now normal or in the future reimagined. And to go back to what I said about data, what's good now is data will tell us whether it's being used or not. It can help us make the decision to whether continue to scale back, to completely change it, to add something, and that could be our best friend moving forward. Not only to make it a work in progress, but to continuously improve so that we can progress and transform.
Agree, Bea. Data speaks a lot.
Right? So maybe Andy, after internet as the fuel, right? Your data is the car engine, right?
Where all the
We need it.
insights really come from, right?
Yeah, really. And I think it's across industries, Kat. It's across industries. I mean, in Team Asia, data is also something that is very important for us. And I can just imagine for all the other industries now, data is something that's really going to help us move forward.
And I think the thing with AI is that it kind of crunches an extraordinary amount of data, right? Instantly. Like something that Nala said earlier on, like within the first 5 to 7 seconds, you can tell like how I'm feeling just from the timbre of my voice, right? Like that's just insane, like what the possibilities are and how much things have changed really, not just in our behaviors, but we've also talked about the channels and how we engage. Today, we also kind of, briefly geeked out on the technologies and how those technologies are being used. So I'm getting a few prompts here to do my moderating duty. So I do have time for one last question that from our audience, and I think I'll address it to all of you, maybe also as our closing question for this panel, right? So, and basically the question from Yuan goes, are we, and I suspect I know your answer to this, but so are we ready for AI here in the Philippines? Looking at what technology is already out there and what we already have. And how can we ensure that there will be less or fewer roadblocks once BPOs and contact centers start embracing this AI? And I guess for me, I'd want to add to that question as we close out, right? So where do you see this going? What do we do from here? What actions do we take next, right? So maybe I'll start from sort of alphabetically, right? By first name. So maybe Andy, I'll start with you.
I think it's inevitable as communication becomes available, becomes available to everyone. Our customers become more demanding, asking for answers right away, not later, not tomorrow, but right away. So with that demand, I think efficiency should increase. Humans can't just handle a lot of calls in a day. So a lot of filtering, a lot of touch points, a lot of analytics will play here. And AI, ML will play a big part. It's not really as easy as doing your Excel, but AI, RPA, ML, all of those should play a big part. And are
we ready? Do you think our companies are ready?
I think we should be ready. Just to say, a week or two into the pandemic, I think it started March 15, we made a chatbot through Senti to do triaging and health check to each employee. Imagine probably 10,000 of us calling a call center. So with that chatbot, doing triaging for us, and the company requiring everyone to do it every day. So that's it. That's AI as simple as a chatbot would do for us. So I think it's inevitable and it's here, especially now.
Thank you so much, Andy, for joining us today and sharing your thoughts. How about you, Bea? What's your take?
First, I'm just going to say, yes, I think we are ready. Don't get me wrong, there are probably some roadblocks that still need to, what we're doing now and having a conversation about this is one of those things that we can do to remove those roadblocks, right? To get people to be more excited about it, to get people to understand the beauty and the awesomeness that this kind of technology can help, not only to make our work processes efficient, like what Andy said, but to make it effective, right? To make it effective and to free us up to do high value work. So I think we are ready. We are transforming, like what they said, COVID-19 just launched us all forward into the biggest experiment of mankind, especially with technology. So I think that this is a ripe place and a ripe time to be able to do that. With your question, Kat, and I actually loved how you just added that last question of, so what does this mean for us? Where are we headed? I think I'll just go back to what I said earlier. We all want to travel a distance. We want to get from point A to point B, and you want to do it seamless. We want to do it the fastest, most effective and efficient way possible, right? This kind of technology is going to be able to do that, be able to help us actually not only make our lives easier, but to also make us more productive and also make us more, free us up for the other things that we need to do as customers, right? Not only as service providers, but as customers. And I'm just going to coin it like what we say with our team back in Team Asia. It's going to be a next level experience. So the question now is, how are we going to do that? And when are you going to do it? Are you going to wait it out, or are you going to start lifting weights? So I think that that's what I would like to leave the audience with.
Thank you so much. That's Bea from Team Asia. Off to you, Graham. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. So yes, I do have a difficult name. I've been spelling my name for my entire life. So I think that for a lot of people don't realize is that, the Philippines has already been using AI. If you use Gmail, if you use SMS, the Google Android app for SMS, or Viber, Smart Reply, which is, it puts in the replies that you can just hit a little button that replies for you. That's AI. So for a lot of people, it's a part of their everyday life and they just don't realize it. But I think, the Philippines are ready. And I think that, the way to bring it in front of more people is to make it, easy, make it seamless. You've got to find sort of that right synergy between what you want to get out of it as a company and without shocking the customer, right, too much. So I think it's just get on that road of AI, bring it in gently, introduce it in the right way at the right pace, and absolutely, the Philippines are ready for AI.
Thank you so much. And what are your final thoughts, Nala?
Just calibrating, because as the last on the alphabetical order, I have to not repeat what everyone is saying.
I started with you earlier, so I'd like to think it's fair.
So I think Philippines is ready, and I would say there is a positiveness because we have not really digitized in lots of places if we take into terms of our daily needs, right? Like, where do we park the car? You go to Makati on the peak hours before, please go back 5 months ago, right? Like we spend around 30 minutes finding the car park, right? Or you want to take a bus or a jeepney or go to a supermarket, you still waste time queuing up, right? Or a guard standing there to just facilitate the line, which is a waste of productivity, right? So we have actually not digitized in the places where we could have digitized, but I think it's a positive advantage. Probably we can skip a stage or an era or an industry 3.0. We can now directly automate it with the facilitation of the AI, right? And the telco companies, during the COVID season, have made the signals very strong in all the places. Huge investments have come into Metro Manila everywhere, right? Like, we don't drop calls these days so often, right? So imagine you can sit at home, and then before you leave the home, like I live in Ortigas going to Makati, if I can book a car parking slot right in the place where I wanted to meet a customer, right? And if AI can help, not just saying which slot is vacant, but also predicting how many slots will get vacant at 3 hours from now, could help Philippines much easier to jump onto that stage. And I think I think we are much more have an advantage to directly jump into and then make our investments much faster into AI and more effectively. That's what.
Fantastic. I mean, I know there are a few questions that we don't have time to answer today. I think this has been such a fantastic panel, and it was an honor for me to have this conversation with such various points of view and expertise. So once again, I'd really like to thank our panelists today, Nala, Bea, Greem, and Andy, for having this conversation with us. I think we've only scratched the surface, and there are a few more questions in the Q&A that we could just write out our answers to. We covered a lot of ground today, actually, everything from the challenges of adopting AI to changes in customer behavior to whether or not we miss EDSA traffic and finding car parking slots. I hope that's going to be our problem again soon enough. And also, I think most importantly, how our employees, our customers are, can improve like their experiences and how services are delivered, right, with the aid of technology. And and that's a shift that is inevitable. We need to embrace it, and as we continue to maintain our excellence in the service sector in the Philippines, it's something that we just need to embrace and run with. I will use my final moderating powers as being able to get the last word here to emphasize again that I'm Kat, I'm from Cuba, and our whole thing is about Filipino tech startups. I'm so proud of Senti AI, right, and that they are a homegrown company that's developing some fantastic solutions for the AI industry, and really cool competitive ones, and working and collaborating together with companies around the world. And we can build it here in the same way that we've built a fantastic contact center industry here. So, we are there, we're embracing technology, we're running with it. And I personally believe the Philippines is more than ready to embrace this change. So yeah, I've been Kat Chan. I'm really thankful to all of our panelists today. And with that, I'm handing the reins back over to Kurt. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kat.
Thank you,
Thank
Kat.
you, Kat.
Thank you,
You're
Kat.
amazing.
Thank
Thank
you, everyone.
Thank you also,
Thank you so
Senti.
much, everyone. Ayan. Thank you so much again to our panelists, Graham, Nala, Bea, and Andy. And of course, our moderator, Kat. You are all wonderful.